Welcome to Sold with Webinars, a podcast that aims to uncover how the most successful experts, coaches, consultants, and e-course professionals sell their products and services with just one sales presentation or webinar. A simple sales webinar can transform the business and life of a solopreneur. And this podcast will show you how other experts just like you are generating 6 and 7 figures per year online with their webinars. So let's get started. Hey everybody, it's Joel here with Sold with Webinars, and you guys are in for a treat. Now, I just finished up a solo podcast today, and I treated this one like a mini masterclass, a mini webinar masterclass. And I talked about something that was really, really important that you can apply immediately to all of your webinars to drastically increase your conversions. And so I wanted to just give you a quick preview of what we're going to be talking about today. So pay attention. It's a short podcast, only about 12 to 15 minutes. I can't remember, but it's a shorter podcast, but enjoy it, take action. And at the end, I actually do something really unique. I'm testing out something. And I want you to pay attention and listen to the end because I'm trying to boost the engagement with my listeners. And so pay attention to the end of the podcast. Figure out what it is that I'm doing here, and I would love for you to interact and message me privately. So I want you to stick around to the end and then engage with this episode. All right, enjoy this episode and go crush it. Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Joel here, and in today's solo episode, I'm going to share something that is, oh man, I love talking about marketing, right? And I wanted to create this solo podcast because I just got done spending about 5 hours reviewing one of my clients' webinars. He purchased a webinar breakdown call, and he's in the trading niche. And after I was going through it, I realized that there was something that was extremely common that I see with like almost every single webinar that I review. And the webinars that convert versus the webinars that don't lead up to their full potential, they all seem to make these common mistakes. And so today's lesson that I want to share with you is going to be based around the 3 P's for dramatically increasing your sales and conversions on your webinars. We're also going to try something interesting and we're going to try a little bit of an experiment. A while ago, I polled my audience and I asked them, what did you like better? Do you like these solo podcasts better, or do you like the interview style podcast better? And I got a lot of people who said they wanted to hear more of these solo podcasts. And so here we are. You asked and I delivered. So at the end of this podcast, this episode today, you have to stay until the very end to figure out what it is, but we're going to try something a little bit different too. So I'll give you that teaser. Let's get into the content though, right? So we're talking about the 3 P's to increase your sales and conversions on your webinars. So let's go back to my client's webinar that I was reviewing. So he gave me this webinar and I sat down, I watched it 2, 3, 4 times, and he's in the day trading space. So he teaches day trading education. So he teaches people how to trade stocks, futures, Forex, I mean, you name it, all the different things with his strategy and his methodology. And so I kept watching and I kept watching it and kept watching it, and he was falling victim to the expert's curse. Now, if you don't know what the expert's curse is, I talk about it within my community. And the expert's curse is what most people do when they start teaching on their webinar. You see, as the expert, when you're developing your own sales presentation, you are so close to your own product and you are so smart that you're way too smart for your audience. A lot of my clients, they sell courses, they sell coaching or consulting, and they want to, and so they're teaching a part of what the end product is in their webinar. And so they don't know how to distill that content so it isn't so confusing, right? And this is exactly what my client did with his day trading webinar. So he was teaching a ton of really, really valuable content, but like I had to watch it 4 times to truly understand like what he was talking about. He had a $2,500 offer at the end. And so the expert's curse is just getting way too deep into the details and basically trying to teach your entire course, your entire, 6-month-long course or 5-module course in a span of, a 60-minute presentation. So after I watched it and pulled out the chunks and pulled out the details, and I was able to help him distill it and focus on the core points that would help inspire his audience and not necessarily teach them to death, because a confused mind doesn't buy, right? I have that, etched in my mind. A confused mind doesn't buy. I also started to think about his lead. Now, leads are something that are so critical, right? The lead is a way to kind of like hook your audience, but also like let them know like, okay, how is this different, right? Your lead is your difference maker in your sales presentation. Now, if you're not a copywriter and you're not a marketer, or you might not know what a lead is. So basically, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And so there are 3 core types of leads that I see work very, very well in the webinar space, in the digital marketing space. So let me give you an example. Many people who are in the business space, they will lead with one of the P's, which is a promise. Okay. So this happens right in the very, very first part of your webinar, right? And a promise lead would be something like, hey, by the end of this presentation, like I'm going to promise to show you how I made $500,000 in the past 6 months using this unique strategy, right? You're promising an end result. You're promising a system. You're promising, some sort of methodology that you're going to be able to learn. And it usually works very, very well. However, most people do that and they stop there, meaning like, oh, I'm just going to promise to show you this system. And it works and it can be effective. And we've had a lot of webinars that do very well just talking about the promise lead. I mean, there's a benefit. If you can show them how to do X, Y, and Z, sure, you're going to get enough interest. And so with my client, when I was reviewing it, he had a promise, but his core promise was pretty weak. I mean, his content was amazing and he did have conversions. So, it was working, but his promise was something along the lines of like, hey, how to turn you in from a struggling amateur to consistent winning trader, right? This is how you go pro. And it was just kind of weak, meaning there was no real incentive and it wasn't really focusing hard on the core issue at hand. It was basically just calling out, okay, you're probably a struggling trader. And if you want to get better, you should pay attention. There was no meat. It was kind of a weak promise. Now, like I said, he did have conversions. So how can we make this better? Well, there's 2 other leads that we can incorporate. Like the great webinars and the great presentations will incorporate a promise, but they'll also incorporate 1 or 2 additional leads inside of this. And so when I was going through here, there's another lead that you can use, which is the pain lead, right? There's promise and there's pain. Those are 2 of the 3 P's. And so the pain lead, which he kind of talks about on here, is struggling amateur, but you got to get really specific on what their pains are. And so I spent a long time kind of like researching and helping to map out what these pains could be. And at this point, like I know in the trading space, even though I'm not a trader, I've looked at tons of these webinars before. In order to get a pain lead, you have to really talk about what they're doing now. And in the trading space, it can get really competitive and really saturated. And I knew after watching this client's webinar that his system was revolutionary, right? He used this system to predict the crypto boom and the crypto crash. Now, I'm not talking about like predicting, oh, it's gonna go up and then it's gonna go down. He predicted it with extreme accuracy. And so we rewrote and helped him reframe his promise and his pain to now talk about the things that his competition was doing and that they had experienced in the past. High frequency trading, algorithm-based trading, all of that stuff, which is really, really confusing. And we know that they've been testing those things out. And so we're throwing stones and throwing rocks at our enemies, right? The enemies being those alternative forms to trading. Because the promise that this client really had for them was that his system worked as long as there was a chart. And there's a chart with almost every market as far as I can see. So we were incorporating the promise of this new unique way of trading that helps you predict when to buy, when to sell on a regular basis using any market that has a chart. So that was the promise. And we're throwing rocks at our enemy by saying like, all of these other techniques out there, they they incorporate algorithm-based training, high-frequency-based training, and here's all the problems and the pains associated with that, right? So we're calling out 2 of those 3 leads. Now, here's where things get really interesting. And it's called, when you incorporate this third P into your introduction, into your lead, this is when things get really powerful. And it's called the proclamation, okay? So pains and promises, if you have any sort of background in marketing, like that's probably not a huge win for you. But when you incorporate a proclamation and you can back it up with proof, man, that's when people really pay attention. They really start to pay attention to what's going on in your webinar. They stick around and they learn. They learn the basic, and they learn from you, and then they believe that you are the solution. So here's what a proclamation is. A proclamation is a prediction. It is usually a prediction that you can substantiate, right? And so and this is where this client missed the boat completely. He was like, oh, what he was relying on was like, oh, trading is hard. I'm going to show you how to make it easy. And that's just kind of a weak statement, right? Go from struggling amateur to successful trader. And so I helped him after I watched his webinar, and I saw that what he was really doing with his clients was he predicted major market turns in all sorts of different markets, Forex, futures, all these different markets out there, and cryptocurrency. So what we did for him was we had to make his presentation much more relevant, and we needed to make it more relevant in the beginning. And we did this with the proclamation. I know in the trading space that right now we're in, it's early 2018 when I'm recording this podcast. Becoming relevant is going to make your conversions skyrocket. And by being relevant and making a proclamation, now you've hooked them in and you've gotten them to believe, okay, now's the time that I need to pay attention, and here's why. So we built this proclamation around the fact of cryptocurrency and showing that this strategy predicted the cryptocurrency boom and the cryptocurrency crash. And so the proclamation was, hey, listen, we predicted that this was going to happen. We are in an opportunity space right now, and here's what is going to continue in the future. I have proof. I have all these trades and proof that what I predicted back then was true. Here's what's happening now, and here's why you should pay attention and how you can seize this opportunity in the future. That's what the proclamation is. It's becoming relevant as to why now is the time that they need to pay attention. What's the pain that they are experiencing right now? And what's the promise for how you can maintain this momentum moving forward as the solution? So the 3 Ps, to recap, of turning an okay presentation into a seriously high converting presentation: pain, promise, and proclamation. What's happening in the future, right? How can you predict what is going to happen? Maybe not predicting. You don't want to say it's a claim, but prove that you predicted stuff in the past and it came true, and show that this is how you can also become the major authority, right? And so we built these 3 Ps into this client's presentation. I guarantee you, when he implements this, it's going to crush. Okay. So I wanted to record this quick podcast and explain to you how can you incorporate a proclamation into your introduction. Like, that's how you become relevant. Why should your audience be paying attention now? Why should they seize this opportunity right now that you're here to show them? What is your proclamation? What is your promise? And what is the pain that they're currently experiencing? Mike Dillard did this with his Elevation Group webinar back in, I think it was like 2010. And he only did $25 million for that webinar, right? The pain that his audience was experiencing was we were in the middle of a depression. And the proclamation that Mike was sharing with his audience was he was showing people how to take advantage of the downturn in the market so they never had to suffer again. And he nailed it right on the head. I mean, he absolutely just hit it out of the park with that webinar because he was relevant, the timing was accurate, and he talked about the pain, promise, and proclamation. Incorporate those 3 Ps into your webinar presentation, and I promise you, the rest will fall into place. Okay, cool. So now, what is this little experiment that we're going to be doing? Well, I want to hear from you, right? I want you to do some homework. and I want to hear what your homework is. Okay, so what I want you to do is if you're working on your webinar right now, email me over at joel@thewebinaragency.com and email me your 3 Ps, your pain, promise, and proclamation for your webinar. Maybe you've got it already built in, or maybe you've got an idea for for improving your webinar. But email me your 3 Ps, and on the next solo podcast, I'm going to review them and I'm going to talk about them. And I'm going to talk about some of the submissions that I got, and we'll review them. I'll do a little critique for you. How's that sound? A little critique on the podcast. So do me a favor. Email me your 3 Ps, pain, promise, and proclamation for your webinar and your ideas, and I'm going to critique one of them on the next podcast. So joel@thewebinaragency.com, and I think it'll be fun. Get some engagement going on and get some interaction with my audience. So that's what I've got for you today. Super excited. This is a big revelation for a lot of you, hopefully. And I know it's really what I go through when I review all my clients' webinars. So that's what I've got for you today. Go crush it. Enjoy your whatever you're doing today. If you're in the car, do me a favor. Hit me up, joel@thewebinaragency.com, and send me your 3 Ps, and we'll see what happens. All right. Until next time, take care. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to giving you the next one. You can also follow and watch the behind-the-scenes look at how I'm personally launching a brand new 6- and 7-figure product from scratch at soldwithwebinars.com/TV. And if you'd like to come hang out with other fellow experts, join our Facebook group at soldwithwebinars.com/experts. Join us next time, and I'll see you there.